To the Middle East now, Israelis in Tel Aviv have welcomed cabinet's approval of a deal with Hamas for a ceasefire as well as release of hostages in the Gaza Strip. Many Israelis said the deal would bring the hostages back to their families. And after a meeting of more than 6 hours, the government ratified that agreement that could also pave the way for the end to the 15-month-old war in the Palestinian enclave, which Hamas controls. And after the Israeli cabinet's approval, lead U.S. negotiator Brett McGurk said the plan was moving forward on track. The ceasefire will then come into effect tomorrow. And under the deal, the ceasefire starts with an initial 6-week phase when hostages held by Hamas will then be exchanged for prisoners and detainees that are jailed in Israel. And in return, Israel will then release almost 2,000 Palestinians from its jails. All right, let's get the latest now from our correspondent, Blake Sifton, who is joining us from Tel Aviv. Blake, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So please bring us up to speed on the latest on the ceasefire deal's approval. That is expected, of course, to take effect as of 8:30 a.m. on Sunday. And what has been the reaction on the ground to the deal?
Good afternoon. That's right. The deal was approved by the wider political cabinet in the early hours of Saturday morning today. It will come into effect at 8:30 a.m. local time on Sunday. Here in Tel Aviv and elsewhere in Israel, there is a great deal of relief. When you speak to people, though, you do also hear anticipation, anxiety, and even a little bit of fear as the clock ticks down to that 8:30 a.m. deadline on Sunday when the ceasefire will come into effect. A recent poll on Friday released by the public broadcaster in Israel found that 62% of Israelis support the ceasefire and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for the 33 hostages. Only 18% of people were against it, with the rest undecided. There is opposition to the deal from the far right in this country, in Israel. However, the majority of Israelis do prioritize the release of hostages over the war's other aims. Also today, we had sirens here and in the rest of central Israel with yet another missile from the Houthis in Yemen fired towards the country. It was intercepted without damage or injuries, but people here hope that when the ceasefire comes into effect, those attacks will stop and that siren will be the last.
Absolutely, Blake. So what do we know about the hostages that will be released in the first phase, or perhaps how this whole process will then be facilitated? We heard reports early in the week that female hostages will also be prioritized. And also, Blake, at this stage, we're not sure how many of those hostages are actually dead or alive.
Indeed. This group of hostages, these 33 hostages to be released in this first phase, are the so-called humanitarian cases. That includes female soldiers, female civilians, men over 50, as well as the sick and injured. We know their identities. However, we do not know the order in which they will be released, or as you say, how many remain alive. The Israeli government has said that a majority of this group of 33 are alive, but some are believed to be deceased. In the initial day of the ceasefire, we expect 3 female hostages to be released for approximately 95 to 100 Palestinian prisoners at 4 p.m. local time on Sunday. Then on the 7th day of the deal, we expect an additional 4 female hostages to be released. Then each preceding week for 4 weeks, we expect to see 3 more hostages, with the remaining 14 released on the final week of the ceasefire.
And Blake, so it's fair to say that some of these hostages that will be, of course, returned or released, it's essentially going to be bodies that will be being returned to the families.
Yes, that is the understanding. In this initial group of 33, as I mentioned, it is believed that some are deceased. Of course, all of this news, the fact that the ceasefire is coming into effect, but also that understanding about the state of the hostages, has led to both hope amongst the families, hope that their loved ones will finally be released, but also, of course, fear and anxiety that of their fate and that they may no longer be living. Amongst the Palestinian prisoners, we have information to bring to you there as well. We understand that some 1,900 Palestinian prisoners will be released in exchange for these hostages. They include 737 so-called security prisoners. These are people accused of security offenses. They include women and children, but also people serving life sentences, including members of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. Many of these prisoners will be released into exile abroad rather than into the West Bank or Gaza. Additionally, we expect to see the release of some 1,100 Palestinians from Gaza who were seized by Israel since October 8th in the fighting there. So these are not people who have been accused of involvement in the October 7th attacks.
Now, Blake, can you tell us about the preparations as well that are currently underway to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza when the deal does begin tomorrow? I mean, amid the logistical challenges that have, of course, been presented by the extensive damage to roads as well as infrastructure.
That's exactly it. There are large questions about that due to the extensive destruction in Gaza. What we understand from aid groups is that a massive effort is underway to bring a large influx of aid into Gaza. As part of the deal, we are expected to see some 600 trucks of aid entering the Strip per day. That is a serious uptick from the some 40 to 50 we have seen in the preceding months. The World Food Program has said that 80,000 tons of aid is either near Gaza or on its way, and there has been a large stockpiling of aid in Egypt along the Rafah border and in Jordan. Throughout this conflict, Israel has been accused of hindering the flow of aid into Gaza, and it's unclear at this stage what mechanism will exist to get such a large amount of aid into Gaza on such a short notice. But as I said, the intention is to have 600 trucks of aid entering the Strip per day.